Hi everyone, this is my video about what's wrong with Streets of Fire, a movie I watched under false pretenses. So TikTok is really good for suggesting movies. It will just show a random clip because whatever the algorithm decided, you might like to see it. So I got reminded that this movie exists. I was vaguely aware of it, but somehow I had misconstrued it as being a much more serious movie. I thought this was going to be like Year of the Dragon with Mickey Rourke, and this is a comic book. It is Dick Tracy, but better. It's Gotham City before Batman got there. I absolutely love this movie. So Streets of Fire is a 1984 movie by Walter Hill. It was approved, I believe, before 48 Hours was released, but after it was done, and they knew it was going to be a huge hit, so they basically said, what else do you have? He had this idea, he passed it off to a screenwriter, they passed it back and forth, it got approved, and this film is nuts. One of the things I just realized right before I started recording this video is this movie was meant to be retro at the time, but it is now double retro. So it's got a 1950s aesthetic and the cars and a lot of the fashion, but then it's got that 1980s, it's like, what if we did this newfangled MTV style? So it's 50s retro while also being 80s retro, but obviously it was modern at the time. So it's about a guy named Tom Cody who's a hero. But this is like so classic and cliche, it's refreshing. Like there's a hero who's tall and muscular and he has a square jaw. And there's a damsel in distress. And there's a little Weasley guy who has some good qualities. And then there's this sidekick, and she's actually almost kind of like the best part of it. So Tom Cody is returning back to his hometown. His sister calls him. Willem Dafoe's gang, the Bombers, is causing some problems. She asks Tom to settle it. Tom is a soldier from a vague war. They put a rock and roll fable right after the title credits to let you know this is not real. It purely exists in the world of movies. Don't try to say like, oh, did he serve in Korea? Did he serve in Vietnam? He served in the war that happened 2 years before this movie took place in the land of movie land. So his sister wants him to rescue his ex-girlfriend, played by Diane Lane. I believe it was her first movie appearance. He's like, somebody's got to pay me. His ex-girlfriend is dating this Weasley club promoter. He gets paid $10,000, which was a lot of money in 1984, and it was a whole hell of a lot of money in the 1950s. It's vague what time frame this is even supposed to take place in. So he meets up with this other ex-soldier played by Amy Madigan. This was a role that was written for a man, and if you're rolling your eyes, you're like, oh god, she is the best part of this entire movie. I think she got an Oscar or an Emmy like in the 1990s, but she turned into more of a serious actress later, but now she was just playing whatever parts. So she went in to read for the sister of the hero, which is a pretty nothing part. And she convinced the director to let her have a part for a man, which was the sidekick. And it works so much better and she's awesome. I kept watching this and saying like, how come nobody's ever told me about this movie? I would describe it as Big Trouble in Little China minus the supernatural. Although he does have a rifle that is magical. Let's just say it's magical. They even kind of set it up. He goes to acquire some firearms, and the guy who sells him the rifle says, the guy who had to pawn this to me was really pissed he really missed it. Of course he misses it. It's a rifle that can blow up an entire enemy battalion. But even when he goes to rescue his ex-girlfriend, like he just shoots the motorcycles of the gang, not the bikers. It's a very fast movie. It's got some good songs, one fantastic song, and then at the end, I think they didn't have enough footage because they're like, oh, let's have like a 10-minute concert scene at the end with like the worst song you ever heard. I read that they were getting these songs literally like the day before they would shoot the scene. The first one is an absolute banger that's been covered by a lot of people. I think Meatloaf even covered it. Nowhere Fast. But the last song, when you were a kid, did you have this phase where you would just make up songs on the spot? It is terrible. In movies like this, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of, oh, how does he have that gun? How does he have that car? I thought he got rid of that. Wait, how did they meet again? If you watch it again, everything clicks together really, really well. So it's well written. You can tell it went through a bunch of drafts. It's very solid. The other thing is, even though it's very over the top in the action, emotionally it works very well. Tom Cody left town because he could tell that his girlfriend was going to be a huge star, and he's just like some knuckle dragger. So he went and joined the army. And then even when they rekindled their flame, at the end he leaves. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to carry speakers for you. I'm not that type of guy. Emotionally, that's a very good motivation for both him leaving originally and for him leaving the second time. And then I'm telling you, when the sidekick pulls up in the car, you're like, oh yes, this is perfect. It didn't do good. If you ever want to get really depressed, read Walter Hill's Wikipedia page. He's a good writer-director who consistently had movies lose money. And it wasn't a box office problem. It was a budget problem. If he just would have made movies cheaper, he would have been this go-to guy for some solid hits. Not huge hits, but solid. But he was always trying to be an A-list guy with A-list budgets, and he just didn't have the draw for it. Apparently there was some weird-ass pseudo-sequel made like 20 years later. I looked at a clip on YouTube, and it was terrible. It was Michael Paré, the lead actor. He hadn't aged badly, but this was like super cheap. It was like, do you remember when they first started making movies with green screen? Like around the time of Sin City, but then all of these other much cheaper movies tried to say, oh, we can do the same thing Sin City does. No, you can't. Sin City is another good one for the tone. If you're thinking about Sin City, Big Trouble in Little China, even Buckaroo Banzai. It's like Big Trouble in Little China minus the supernatural, Buckaroo Banzai minus sci-fi. Although again, that rifle is both supernatural and from the 28th century. It is incredible. Apparently there was behind the scenes drama. I guess they cast Michael Paré and then nobody really thought he was that good. And then also Rick Moranis, who was a rising star at the time. I think he was a little jealous of Michael Paré, and apparently he was just roasting the shit out of him all day long. But you can't have the lead beat up the little scrawny guy behind the scenes. And Michael Paré is like, yeah, I'm not a witty guy. I could not come up with any clapbacks to his roast at all. So apparently it was just this giant action dude getting bullied by Rick Moranis behind the scenes for like 2 months. There is one blooper, though, that is the funniest blooper I ever saw. So he's rescued Diane Lane, but then she finds out that he had to be paid to rescue her, so she's heartbroken. She's like, I hate you for having to be paid to rescue me. But you can tell there's still something there. They're in a stairwell, and they're doing shot, reverse shot. And Michael Paré has like a cool guy, like tousled hairdo for most of the movie. And then something happened. In 2 of the shots, he's got the cool guy hair. And I don't know what happened, if he like went for a smoke break in between shots and it was raining outside. But they cut back to him and he looks like alfalfa. He looks like he's taking his school picture in the 2nd grade. It is the most ridiculous continuity error I have ever seen. Short of subbing in another actor for 2 of the shots. And these are well-lit medium shots. Like, you're like, what the hell? Nobody noticed this? But yeah, it is just a fantastic movie. And especially the first 45 minutes, oh my gosh. I was talking about the first hour of True Romance just flies by. This one doesn't get that far. It's the first 45 minutes and then it slows down a little. But man, that first 45 minutes, it is just freaking perfect. The funny thing is, when you read about the making of the movie, they're really, really proud of the outside set they had for like where all the rumbles were. It was like the New York City set somewhere, but they put a tarp over it so they could shoot a lot of night scenes during the day. And I gotta tell you, I have never seen a set look more like a set, except for maybe Oz, that prison show from the 1990s. That is the most set-looking set I've ever seen. And I always kind of wondered why these higher budget movies and TV shows had sets that looked like they were from Saved by the Bell. If you go shoot on location, it's expensive. You got to rush through it. But if you spend $1 million on a set, the producer's going to say, we want to show off every single part of this set. So they just linger on things, and you just start noticing things like, hey, the sidewalks are half as wide as they should be. So when they spend more money on a set, they end up showing it more, and then you notice how fake it is. Anyway, Highly recommended. I might watch this thing again today. I already watched it 2 times and I listened to the song like 40 times yesterday. Thanks for watching. Bye.